Welcome to episode 3 of Dairy Delivery by the Dairy Star. On today's episode, we'll hear from a farmer in Oconto who's a passionate Green Bay Packers fan and took his family to the NFL Draft, hosted by the Packers last month. Next, we'll visit with the Gerrit family of Greenleaf, Wisconsin. The Gerrits have made improvements all over their farm, as 4 of their sons have come back for a chance to work at Country Air Farms. Next, we'll visit with Troy and Sandy Madlin, along with their children, Garrett Madlin and Teresa Holloway. Garrett and Teresa are using what their parents started as a first-generation farm and are using their own experiences to continue expanding Lyndell Dairy in Linden Station, Wisconsin. Finally, a tragedy turned into a teaching point. In Minnesota, Matt Hendel began working with the Minnesota Occupational Safety and Health Administration to turn the experience of his brother Carl's farming accident into a safety-focused approach and turning a tragic situation into something people can learn from. This is Dairy Delivery. All dairy, all the time.
This is Jeff Ditzenberger, the Director of Communications and Member Services here at Farm First Dairy Cooperative. What is Farm First Dairy Cooperative? We are a member cooperative that does test verification. We also do tank calibration. We have member support where we support member events and farm tours and partner with local industry and dairy promotion. We also have policy advocacy. Farm First represents farms in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. This wide and diverse membership builds a strong voice of representation on dairy legislation and issues that affect your bottom line. And one of our biggest benefits, milk income loss benefits. If you'd like to have more information about Farm First Dairy Cooperative, give me a call. Jeff Ditzenberger, 608-214-9137. Again, Jeff Ditzenberger, Farm First Dairy Cooperative, 608-214-9137.
I'm Dan Walker.
And I'm Michelle Stangler, and we're your reporters with Dairy Star, bringing you the latest in the dairy industry, including hearing from farmers across the Midwest and beyond. Well, it's been a packed few weeks involved in spring right now. Right now, my mind is on flowers and Mother's Day. What about you, Dan? When you think about spring, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having Mother's Day this last weekend. It's always a good time to sit and reflect. And I know it's trying to make those days specials for your mom, my mom, your mom probably too. And then my wife having it being her Mother's Day for her too, making it special with the kids and doing all that. So.
Yeah, and when we think about these last few weeks, it's definitely been jam-packed with the NFL Draft. I had wrote a column, but we'll have a story in here today talking about a dairy farmer's experience there. We're also right now in the middle of planting season, right where I'm at in Wisconsin. A lot of farmers are almost done. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I'd say farmers around here in Western Wisconsin are doing their best to get in. They've got some really good weather the last couple of weeks, and I know it's kind of one of those times of year where it's all hands on deck. My brother and dad called me up the other day, and I got to go out to the farm and help them, haul off some corn stalk bales so I could get back out on the farm so they could prepare for planting for the rest of it. It was good to be back out there with them and put my farming hat back on for a little bit. So.
Well, that's really cool that you got the opportunity to do so. Spring is just such a fun time. Graduation season is in the corner. College graduation is right now in the middle of it. So congratulations to all those graduates. And we really appreciate you coming on here today. We have a lot of fun stories here on the Dairy Delivery. So let's get into today's episode.
Our first story today takes us to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Charlie Reevy farms in Oconto, 35 minutes from Lambeau Field, where the 2025 NFL Draft was held. With the draft in his backyard, Reevy made the trip to see one of the NFL's biggest off-season events, taking in the day with his family. He spoke with our Northern Wisconsin reporter, Danielle Nauman, about this once-in-a-lifetime experience.
How did you decide, that you wanted to go to the draft? How did that all come about?
The draft has always been like Christmas to me.
Okay.
Since probably about 1994, when the Packers picked Aaron Taylor in the first round, I was aware of the draft. I used to listen to the radio because we didn't have cable.
Okay.
And so then, in 90s...
And it was only on ESPN.
It was only ESPN. So then I used to go to my uncle's house and watch it all day long on Saturday, because that was when it was 15 minutes a pick. So it was a lot longer day. So I would get done with chores and go to town and watch the picks, and keep track of them, So I've always been interested in it, So when it came to Green Bay, it was like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So
yeah.
And I wanted to take the boys and my wife. We all went down there. And, of course, we picked Friday, and it rained. So
Story of our life.
Yeah, so we all had rain ponchos on and that, but it was still.
But at least it was warm last week, wasn't it? Or was it cold?
At night it was cold.
Oh, okay.
We actually watched because it was round 2 and 3 was Friday night.
Okay.
And I went in the crowd and watched the round 2. My wife went back with the boys closer to Lambeau to get a view with some friends. Well, they got cold then because they were in the crowd. So in the round 3, we watched it from the atrium and drink hot chocolate. So because it was down at 38 degrees.
Okay, I was thinking it stayed warmer than that last weekend, but I don't really remember.
But then they had that drone show. We stayed for that. That was neat. You know, I don't know if you saw pictures online about that.
Not the show. I don't think. Okay. I saw the pictures from the big over. You know,
of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw the video of Clay Matthews.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it was just always, like I said, it was neat to experience the draft in person. For the first time, rather than just watching on TV.
So what was it like to be? I mean, because I look at those pictures and I think, holy moly!
It really felt like a Packer tailgate party.
Okay.
It felt like walking around before the game. You know, it was probably 85
on steroids.
Yeah, 85 to 90% of people were Packer fans.
Yeah. I mean, they said it was like 600,000 people between
all 3 days.
Yeah.
On Friday, there was 175,000 the day it rained.
Yeah.
And because we started out at the beginning of Titletown district. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Vaguely, because
there's a big that football field, and then they got businesses around, so they start you there. And then we first started, it wasn't very crowded at all. But then closer we got to Lambeau, then the crowds picked up.
So you just walked through it. And,
yep.
And they had vendors and stuff.
Yep. They had a big wall of all the teams' helmets you could take pictures in front of.
Oh, okay.
And then the boys did. You could kick a football through like a little field goal they set up, or throw it. I was gonna show you.
So they had family type activities.
Yeah.
And
then they got to put their helmets and jerseys on. So there's my Eagles fan.
Jeff Ditzenberger here with Farm First Dairy Cooperative. Are you a high school junior or senior who's thinking about extending their education past high school? Did you know that if your family is a Farm First Cooperative member, that you're eligible for a scholarship? And it doesn't matter if you're attending a 4-year, 2-year, or short course for that education. And it doesn't even have to be related to agriculture. You are eligible as long as your family is a Farm First Dairy Cooperative member. Give me a call to find out more. 608-214-9137. Farm First Dairy Cooperative, where we put members first.
Well, the connection that the Packers have with the state of Wisconsin is tough to match. I know I'm a Packers fan myself, so go Pack, go. Or if you're another fan, that's okay. I'd love to hear what kind of fan you are. You can check out our email in the show notes. But you can hear more from that story with what the NFL draft experience meant to him as a farmer and his family with the headline Christmas in Titletown on dairystar.com. Next, we will head to Greenleaf, Wisconsin, where the owners of Country Air Farms sat down with our Southern Wisconsin reporter, Stacy Smart. Country Air Farms is a fifth-generation farm, and with 4 brothers returning to work together, expansion was necessary. Hear about how Country Air made it possible for all 4 brothers to work side by side on the farm.
Mike, you recently finished an expansion project that included 2 new barns to house 3,000 cows, as well as a new 80-stall rotary parlor and the remodeling of an existing rotary to become a 50-stall parlor. Can you tell me what it was like doing an expansion of this magnitude?
Well, it was really interesting. It wasn't just building the 80-stall rotary. It was managing cows to go back to a new facility so we could totally remodel our current parlor, which was a 40-stall, into a 50-stall rotary.
In addition to the new buildings and the remodeling of the existing parlor, you also remodeled 4 freestall barns, correct?
Yes, we did. We did a full remodel on our existing holding area. Went from a slatted floor to a concrete holding area with a flush, an entire ventilation redo, did sprinklers, also redid our water system, had a gravity flow, went to a pressurized water system, and went to a automated foot bath system. and also remodeled curtains, barn roofs in the remodel project.
So that's a lot to take on, especially given the fact that the cows were in those buildings while you were doing those upgrades, right? So could you kind of talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, so it basically came down to moving cows from barn to barn. The existing 5, 6 barns, cattle were moving from pen to pen as we were remodeling each pen individually with water systems, free stalls, and self lockers. So yeah, it was challenging moving cows from barn to barn and pen to pen.
And how long was the entire process from beginning to end, like including the design and building phases?
So it started approximately 3 years it took us by the time we got 24 permits needed to build it. The current parlor, the new 80 stall rotary, was a year and a half. We started milking June 3rd, and then we did a full remodel, and that started July 5th and finished up November 11th.
Great. Okay. And what were some of the challenges you faced along the way?
I think our biggest challenges were that we had to take and bring cows from 5 different milking setups back into 2 currently, because one was a herringbone rotary, one was a parallel, and one was just a regular herringbone. So there was 4 different milking styles that had to come into one milking style.
That is a lot to deal with. Any surprises along the way, good or bad, that you maybe weren't anticipating?
I think some of the good things were that our efficiency of trying to get these cows milked very promptly and getting cows to get adapted to one milking system was a good thing.
So looking back now, is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
I think that would be a question maybe you can ask me in maybe another year, as we just finished up here November 11th with the final parlor. Hopefully we didn't make too many mistakes, but as of right now, it looks all to be running okay.
Well, that's good news. And so at this point, how do you feel about the number of cows you're at and the status of all your facilities?
Feeling pretty good right now with the way everything's running. I guess one thing that caught us a little bit off guard was the cost of cows. We budgeted in at $2,200 and now they're at $3,800 per cow. So it kind of slowed up our process of how quickly we wanted to fill, just for the simple fact that we can't find as many cows as we need right now, but we'll fill internally the next 3 or 4 months to get us a capacity.
And you have the next generation right at the helm here with you and your brother, the four boys. And can you tell me a little bit about how you feel this is really going to set them up for success?
Well, with currently basically an entirely new setup, turnkey setup, 2 new parlors, 8,000 cows, I think they're going to be really efficient and they'll be able to be very competitive with the rest of the dairymen in not only the state, but the United States.
And any advice you would give for someone that's thinking of doing an expansion project on their farm and or maybe working on a succession plan?
Yeah, especially do your homework. A lot of permits are needed. Getting those are very crucial because with the amount of acres needed for manure, it's becoming bigger and bigger every day. And now that we have the ability to go to the digester, and hopefully our manure will be reduced by 50%, will help us long-term and short-term. And our succession plan was done approximately 2 years ago with our boys, and make sure that you have that done before you start building projects, because the boys want to know where they're going, what they're doing, and what their expectations and goals are as you go through the expansion.
This is Jeff Ditzenberger with Farm First Dairy Cooperative. At Farm First Dairy Cooperative, we put members first. One of the ways that we do that is a unique benefit called the Milk Income Loss Program. This program will assist you as a member financially if you incur a milk loss due to lightning, electrocution, loss of power, fire, windstorm, or other acts of nature that you cannot control. Interested in finding out more? Give me a call, Jeff Ditzenberger, at Farm First Dairy Cooperative at 608-214-9137 and find out how Farm First Dairy Cooperative puts members first.
Truly great to see how they've been able to make that all work together, which with each brother's different background providing a different piece needed for their farm. Read their story, ready for the next generation, at dairystar.com. We will continue to discuss what led farmers to expanding as we head to Lyndell Dairy near Linden Station, Wisconsin. I had the chance to talk with Troy and Sandy Madlin and about how they took Troy's dream of owning a dairy and went from a 32-cow run-in farm in 1991 and have now built a 520-cow dairy with their adult children, Gerrit Madlin and Teresa Holloway, bringing their own dairy experiences to the farm. All right, so we're here with Lyndell Dairy with Troy and Sandy and Gerrit. You guys started in 1991 with 32 cows in a rented barn. You're now at 520 cows with 1,800 acres of land. Can you describe maybe what that timeline was like and how you guys have grown so much in the last 30 years?
I guess, when we started in 1991, neither one of us came from a farm or farm background, really. Troy always just worked on farms, but we, jumped off. We got a loan for 32 cows and in a rented barn, and we had to move a couple times to different rented barns before we ended up where we are now in 1994. When we came up here, it had a parlor that was double seven. It was only a couple years old, and we only had like 45 cows when we came here, and the bank was like, well, that's not making the best use of that facility, so we're going to loan you some money to buy some cows and fill up a little bit. And I think over the years, we just, as we could gain some equity and have a little more borrowing power, we knew like, hey, we can maybe add on to the freestyle barn a little bit and add another 30 cows. And then in 2005, we were in a pretty good situation finance-wise and decided we needed to build a new freestyle barn. And so at that point then, we were milking like 350 cows when we built that freestyle barn and milked up there and kind of got that rolling. And then we needed some new dry cow facilities because, we moved our milk cows into that new barn, and our dry cows were still in our old facilities, and we knew that wasn't the best environment for them if we wanted them to transition well. So we in 2012, we added a 63 stall dry cow barn. And then after that, our transition barn was always on our wish list. And we knew that was like kind of a limiting factor then to in really getting our cows off to a good start. So when we in 2022, we built that transition barn, added a few stalls there, and our kind of maternity area and hospital and fresh cow pen up there. And that's kind of how we ended up getting to the cow numbers that we're at now, just a little over 500.
And Troy, this all kind of started with you when you were younger. You had family that was on dairy farms or beef cattle and stuff, but you didn't come from dairy. What kind of got you into farming, and what kind of keeps driving you to continue to expand and build up what you guys have?
It's just a passion, I guess, you develop over the years. My grandfather had some feeder cattle, a few, and that sparked my interest in agriculture. And we had some neighbors that milk cows, and I always thought that'd be a great way to live.
Gerrit, now you came back in 2015. You went to school at Platteville, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have kind of helped transition this into the next step, right? So like you came back in 2015, you expanded more in 2022 to kind of get to your number you're at right now. Now that things are kind of more on your shoulders, where do you see this going in the future? Are you looking at maybe 1,000 cows in the next 30 years, or what do you want this to look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years, I see expanding a little bit. I don't know if we'll quite get to that 1,000. But I could see adding, 100 cows or 200 cows, or just slow and steady, the way my parents have always done it. And I think that's a good, safe way to do it. And yeah, add a couple hundred cows and see where we are then, and see if we can move on a little bit more. I have two sons, and we'll see in 10 years, they'll be old enough to see if they have an interest in agriculture as well. So.
You got to grow up on a farm. Your parents didn't get the opportunity to grow up on a dairy farm. You have. That's something you want for your boys. 2 boys?
Yep, 2 boys and a daughter. Yep,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, that's growing up on a dairy farm. You can't trade it for anything. It's
Yeah.
best place to grow up, like everybody says. So, yep, wanted to give them that opportunity for sure.
Catch up with how the Madlands have exponentially increased their herd over the last 34 years under the headline Growing Like Mad on dairystar.com. Next, we'll go to Caledonia, Minnesota. September 7th of last year, Matt Hendel's farm changed forever as his brother Carl fell from a bunker and passed away. Following the accident, Matt began working with the Minnesota Occupational Safety and Health Administration, finding a good experience in using tragedy to help ensure the future safety of the employees on his farm. Let's hear from our Minnesota reporter, Amy Kylo, as she spoke with Matt to learn about what he had learned, safety-wise, from the experience.
So they kind of figured out a plan for mitigation on the bunkers. Then you said there was some other things you're also doing now since the accident, some safety training. Tell me some of those other things that also you've implemented since the accident.
When you have over 10 employees, you need to have safety training. So we'll get together. I can't always get everybody together, so I'll do a couple different groups and we'll go over. I go on the internet and I look up. OSHA has a lot of brochures and stuff on their end, and then also I can find other safety recommendations that are out there that make a lot of sense. And so each month I post by the time cards what the safety goal of the month is, okay? And that way it's posted there. That way everybody, you keep thinking about it, see? Obviously, we think about it a lot because of the tragedy, but just introducing other ideas each month and talking to the OSHA people. What are the most common things that happen a lot of times? Well, working around skid loaders, there's things you need to, I clarify with each person. You always must check your bucket is secure, because we all have these quick latches now. So you need to verify that bucket is attached before you move the skid loader. And that's something you kind of forget sometimes, but that's a common way people get injured or killed is with skid loader buckets falling off that people think are attached but aren't, because there's people around working. And so, I just kind of pick up from them ideas and on what's the most common thing. And then there's electrical cords is another thing. You have a bad cord, throw it away. It's not worth somebody getting shocked over. These cords don't cost that much. And a lot of people get electrocuted on the farm. So next month is electrical safety month in May. And it just makes people think, keeps everybody aware. So we basically have safety meetings, and I post safety literature. And that way it just makes me feel better that I'm preventing, another tragedy from happening. You just always got to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit, you talked about having a lot of long-term employees right after the accident. Tell me about what that looked like to, continue the farm on without a key owner being part of it.
Well, it was tough at first, because we're all a little, but everybody, I don't know. For me, it worked out really good because everybody was willing to step up and take on different roles, and everybody took on more responsibility, and I had to step back from some of the things I like to do because Carl always did the book work, and he enjoyed that a lot too and was really good at it. because we always try to, when we invest in something, we would always try to do our homework. Carl spent a lot of time studying prices on equipment all around, and if we're gonna, well, different kinds of equipment, because there's like calf, we have an automatic calf feeder, and then we always look at the value you get, return on investment. You have to try to pick the correct size. When I was in college, I had an ag engineering course, and they had it just when computers were starting to be part of the classroom, So I'm dating myself a little bit. That was about 1987. I had an engineering course, and you could plug in numbers to see what size of equipment would be the most efficient for the size of farm, built in with not getting too much, getting the right horsepower. And there's a lot to think about each piece of equipment. Everything you do, you have to watch your inputs. You have to look at how much it's going to take out of your milk chuck. There's a lot of ways to look at it, so you got to evaluate it. And he was really good at making those kind of decisions and working together all those years. And I kind of picked up on his thought processes too. And so moving forward, I'm making investments. I bought we always use skid loaders, and I bought a front end loader to work with the bunkers now. So we have more reach. So when we're working with the tires, it's safer because you can see what's going on. When you're in the cab, you have more visibility, and then you can reach higher on the pile when you're putting tires up to, make sure, because you can't see when you just have a skid loader, you're sitting way low and you can't see the people up there. I just pull up and then I tilt the bucket and they grab them off, and I can't hear. With the loader now, we'll be able to visually see everything. So that's another big safety plus is investing in that loader. Yep,
I totally know.
So I've spent a lot of money to mitigate some of these things, but it's super important for the safety of everyone too. So
you talked about being a little bit apprehensive when you first, met with them. What is this going to look like? Is this going to be, really financially devastating, etc. Tell me a little bit about, now that you've been through it, how you would, like, if you had a visit from OSHA now, how you might feel versus what you felt back in September.
I had a lot of fear about what was going to happen and how much they can fine you a lot of money. And what I found was these folks care about people. That's why they do this job. They're not there to fine you. They're there to help mitigate risks. Okay. And by talking to them, I figured everybody I met and worked with, they were very helpful. They weren't out to punish me for any mistakes we made. They were out to help make sure it doesn't happen again. And really caring folks. And I totally different ideas from what I had in my brain about dealing with OSHA. So it was a good experience, and I feel like I could call them anytime and ask them a question now, and they're not going to try to ruin my business. They're just trying to help.
Read more about Matt Hendel and how Carl's passing has led to improved safety practices and understanding on the farm under the headline Safety Measures Born from Tragedy on dairystar.com. We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Farm First Cooperative. Farm First represents farms in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana.
This diverse membership builds a strong voice of representation on dairy legislation and issues that can affect a farm's bottom line. If you'd like more information about Farm First Dairy Cooperative, call Jeff Ditzenberger at 608-214-9137. That's Jeff Ditzenberger, 608-214-9137.
There's a lot more stories in this issue of the Dairy Star, including this one about the Minnesota Dairy Princess program. Minnesota has a strong Dairy Princess program, and if you're in Minnesota, you'll see a special section featuring over 70 dairy princesses from across the state. with one of these women being chosen as Minnesota's Goodwill Dairy Ambassador as Princess K of the Milky Way in August. You can also see their answers to various questions on dairystar.com. For this issue's history segment, in Wisconsin, one woman will soon be chosen as Alice in Dairyland. Our Northern Wisconsin reporter Danielle Nauman spoke with various and current Alice in Dairyland, Haley Heinzel. The position is a one-year contracted role, serving as the state's agriculture ambassador and an employee of Wisconsin's Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection.
Another story we have in the Dairy Star is Shauna Nelson was recently named the 4th CEO in Organic Valley's history. Nelson is a 20-year employee at the co-op Organic Valley, and she talked about how she's able to use her past experiences in different areas of the company to continue moving Organic Valley into the future.
Another story in this issue features Kyle Krieger of Clintonville, Wisconsin. Farming alongside his parents was a dream of his when he was growing up, but after his father was diagnosed with lymphoma his freshman year of high school, his dream took a back seat. The family sold the cows while Kyle was in high school. After graduating, the family brought the cows back to the 7th generation farm. Kyle's father has since passed, but he's continuing his dream, farming alongside his mother, Heather. Be on the lookout for the headline, Creating the Life He Dreamed Of, to read more about Kyle's story.
Just so many stories hearing from farmers, but one more is in accordance here with Mother's Day recently is an 86-year-old Betty Hesse. She observed the day without milking a cow for the first time in more than 6 decades. And all 33 members of her family got together this past weekend. Well, you can find all the stories in the Dairy Star newspaper, then come back to the Dairy Delivery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts to hear more of those stories. Rate and subscribe, and if you know someone is interested in being featured in the Dairy Star or on Dairy Delivery, reach out at dairydelivery@dairystar.com so we can continue sharing all dairy all the time.